This panel today, we talked about some of the technology and policy considerations in rolling out 5G mobile infrastructure and also completing the rollout of 4G mobile infrastructure around Europe. Some of the key messages coming from that panel is both EMF and planning policies are important to enable the rollout of 5G. In some countries in Europe, there are stricter limits than the international standards and best practice around these policies.
Working in a country that has adopted EMF limits well below the ICNIRP level oblige us to face further problems, additional problems compared to our peer in other countries. A comparative study from Fondazione Bordoni, that's an independent consultative body that works for the ministry in Italy, showed that in 2017, that is well before the introduction of 5G networks, 77% of urban sites are already saturated in terms of EMF levels.
My fellow panelists emphasize the importance of basing the regulation of electromagnetic fields around the scientific evidence. We see that the current review of these limits by the international organization ICNIRP, as well as the transposition of the newly created European Electronic Communication Code at the national level, would provide opportunities for member states and local authorities to adopt best practice policies in their own jurisdictions.
At the telecoms regulator, we see the licensing process and authorization process because it's key. We want to establish a flexible and fast authorization framework for base stations. We want to expand our light licensing regime for more types of base stations, and we want, of course, to rationalize and optimize the rights of way costs because they are quite important in 5G deployment.
The updated guidelines, which are still in draft form, are a little bit different from the 1998 guidelines, although the main guidelines, which are the SAR recommendations for the general public and for occupational exposure, are still the same. There are some details that differ, but not very significant actually.
We've been researching mobile phone use in adults and children for many years now, and we've seen a trend of changing usage from mobile phone networks to Wi-Fi networks over this last 10-15 years. We've also seen that traditionally we have used mobile phone call time as the main estimate of usage for adults. And we've seen that with children, that isn't a great measure of mobile phone usage because the children in our study are actually making calls for less than 5 minutes per week. And really their usage is solely focused on data.
Successfully and efficiently deploying 5G networks requires at the first step converting 5G concerns to 5G acceptance and then work on policies and on establishing a collaborative environment for 5G deployment.